Grasshopper Manufacture's games, specifically the ones directed by Suda51, are known for being batshit, to say the least. Well, what do you get when you smash his high-octane balls-to-the-wall game design with a story written by James Gunn during his Super era, as well as music from none other than Akira Yamaoka of Silent Hill fame? You get Lollipop motherfucking Chainsaw. Depending on who you ask, this is either Suda's best game ever, or it's a mediocre, sexist mess. I love a good moral argument in the morning. It gets the blood pumping. The premise itself is very simple. It's Juliet's 18th birthday, and she's supposed to have a big party this afternoon. The only issue is that somebody ended up opening a gate between the realms, releasing a gas that turned people into zombies, as well as released 5 super zombies known as purveyors that she has to kill. Or the world's gonna go to hell in a handbasket, literally. Also, her boyfriend was bitten by zombies, so she just chopped off his head.
I had to!
Oh, God! Oh, fuck! Oh, God! Now she has to stop the zombie apocalypse before her birthday party starts. And the prom's tomorrow! Along the way, you'll run into Juliet's sisters and her father, and at random intervals, you'll even get phone calls from her mother. I'd like to say that they're the comedic relief, but none of them really have enough screen time to be memorable, save for Cordelia, Juliet's older sister, since she's voiced by my future wife, Linda Cardellini. The best character, hands down, is probably Nick, Juliet's boyfriend. His discontent with just being ahead leads to some of the sassiest sarcasm I've heard from a character in a while. He works well as a sort of commentary and vehicle for this game's feminism. In an interview with the Struck Droid, James Gunn himself said, quote, "Nick is objectified by Juliet. He's literally turned into an accessory, a commodity, and his humanity is denied. But within this emasculation, Nick has to find some more worth other than being the strong one. He needs to find strength through trust," end quote. All of this is incredibly obvious in the game, even without James Gunn's words. Nick's wants and concerns are blatantly ignored by Juliet in a comedic fashion, so much so that sometimes it made her kind of unlikable, which is the point. Nick's objectification drives him to, brace yourself, suicidal urges near the end of the game. I promise that it makes more sense in context. Juliet is a pretty feminist character that breaks a lot of preconceived notions that you have when first looking at her design, while also taking on stereotypically feminine traits, at least according to male writers in the early 2010s. Don't get me wrong, there's lots of yikes stuff outside of just being generally horny, like the implication that her teacher has been requesting her to wear teddy bear panties while she practices so we can see, all of which happened off screen before her 18th birthday, and the conflict between Nick and Juliet just kind of goes away once the final boss shows up, but nobody was expecting the story to be half of what it was. So that stuff aside, it's basically Barbie with zombies. I love it. Get Greta Gerwig on the phone, I have a sequel idea. After the strike, of course, I'm not a complete piece of shit. As a big fan of Suda's later game, Killer is Dead, Lollipop plays exactly the same. It's a hack and slash game where you're pretty much going to be button mashing. Even as the game adds new mechanics like the chainsaw dash or the blaster, you're still basically alternating between X, Y, and A to stun and kill zombies with different combos. You kill multiple at the same time and you'll get a sparkle bonus, granting you additional coins you can use to upgrade Juliet in various ways, as well as buy concept art, MP3s, and additional costumes, which I'm always a fan of. And there's a metric fuck ton in this game, especially for the weebs out there. With skins from High School of the Dead, Is This a Zombie?, Monyu Hiken Cho, which I might have to check out for no reason. Update, I'm editing this. I watched the first episode. Terrible. Don't watch it. It's Demon Slayer with tits. If you've seen it, you'll know. Not good. And Dead Man Wonderland, of all things. A very 2012 collaboration. Never thought I'd hear that name ever again. As fun as this game can be, you're not coming here for just the moment-to-moment combat or the unlockable scandalous costumes. Suda's games specialize in being so stylized that it practically oozes from their ears. And Lollipop is no different. The music, the UI, even the loading screens are amazing. My favorite is the very first one on the bike. I just love that little tune that plays. Even the gore, which I'm usually not a big fan of, is replaced with red TV noise. I love this fucking game. The comic book aesthetic mixes very well with Akira Yamaoka's punk soundtrack, as well as Jimmy Urin's boss fight tracks. Speaking of which, those are visually some of the best parts of the game. Even ones that are a bit underwhelming at first, like the Mariska fight, eventually turns into a terrible drug trip with her eyes replacing the skybox, and her hands constantly chasing. It's a great example of not scary, but the vibes are immaculate. This game has a general lighthearted comedic tone that makes it feel so unique. It's not that comedic portrayals of a zombie apocalypse don't exist, it's just that you don't often see it this cheery and bright. Although, with James Gunn in the writer's chair, there were bound to be some jokes that just didn't land. I should note that I really like his movies for the most part. It's just that I've never really appreciated when any sort of media goes for shock value solely for the sake of it, be it excessive gore or saying plainly offensive things just to get a reaction. With that being said, man, most of the jokes about Juliet are surrounding her having an eating disorder, since she doesn't eat food, only lives off of lollipops, and thinks she's extremely overweight. Yikes. Half of the dialogue from random zombies and even the dark purveyors boils down to threats of sexual violence, which I will not repeat or even put in the video. Neither of these things really bothered me personally, although I can see why it would bother someone else. Which is a shame when there's lots of funny stuff in the game. Like the villain literally just being a bullied incel is just kind of the funniest reason for a zombie apocalypse. Not to mention that some of the dialogue exchanges between Nick and Juliet are hilarious.
What's your favorite color, Nick?
Blue? No, green.
Awesome. I love learning about you.
I fucked up. It's yellow.
A friend turned me on to Zombie Gun, a brand new detergent from Lollipop Chainsaw, specially formulated to get out even the toughest brain matter stains.
The apocalypse begins.
I'm gonna eat you up.
Show no mercy.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt.
The level design is very linear, often just whittling down to a literal hallway simulator. Most of the game is running down corridors and killing zombies. So if the combat isn't at the very least palatable to you, then this isn't your kind of boat ride. Outside of the aforementioned hacking and slashing, there's lots of random stuff. I was serious when I described Suda's game design as balls to the wall, since not one mission goes by without some sort of pace breaker. Like recreations of arcade games, mowing grass, playing basketball with zombies, which is actually really fun, and I'm kind of mad that it was only used twice in the game. I wish that was used more often, and having to fight enemies on an elevator without them going over the weight limit. Each of which are kind of meant to fit the theme of their respective levels, save for the lawn mowing. That shit just comes out of nowhere. These often vary widely in quality. The chainsaw dash has stiff turning, but still manages to be very fun. The Nick quick time events, where you put his head on a random body and just press the corresponding button, are so short that they can't even register as annoying in my brain by the time that they're over. But the chainsaw blaster baseball section is hands down the worst part of the game, and that's due to how just ass this aiming is. Having gyro was the only thing that saved Killer is Dead's shooting gallery sections from sucking ass. But since this was never ported to PC, there's nothing to save it here. It doesn't matter if you have auto aim on or off, it just doesn't work. As a matter of fact, auto aim makes it worse, since it will snap to random enemies, sometimes before they've even spawned in. Fuck this part of the game. Never again. In each mission, you'll have the opportunity to save fellow students who haven't turned somehow, even though everyone turned into a zombie due to the gas in the air that you breathe in, whatever. Some are optional that you have to kind of go out of your way to save, while most are just stumbled upon while completing the main story. This is probably the second worst part of the game, right behind the baseball. Not because saving them is that obnoxious. You just kill the zombies before their health is depleted. Occasionally you'll have to protect them as they slowly shuffle from A to B, which is kinda dumb. But then once it's over, they give you coins in return. Done deal. No harm, no foul. The issue comes later in the game. After defeating the final boss, which is just a giant zombie Elvis, Nick, Juliet, and her family finally go home for the big party, only to find that Juliet's mom turned into a zombie and presumably kills them off screen? even though they're all zombie hunters? Okay. This is the bad ending that you get automatically, even if you let one survivor die, at least as far as I know. What the fuck is this? Not only can these survivors die incredibly easily, but the game does not make this clear whatsoever. Each of these stages are about 40 minutes to an hour each, so good luck replaying it to find which ones you missed. And to add insult to injury, you have to wait and get the coins from them, or else saving them just doesn't count. I didn't know this. I personally only had 2 survivors die on me in my playthrough, but I don't remember how many I saved yet forgot to collect the reward. I could go back and see, but you have to load into the level to see how many you have to save, and since my name isn't Gerard and I'm not getting paid to do the extra work, I'll be damned if I ended up replaying the entire game just to see a different cutscene. This is what YouTube was invented for. Honestly, Lollipop Chainsaw is a game that probably wouldn't be made today. You know, if it didn't already exist. And it's not because of wokeism or whatever we're calling people who aren't straight and white nowadays, but because it's too out there, it's too in your face, more so than any other Suda game I've personally seen. Of course, the remake is releasing this coming spring, and I have to talk about it in some capacity. Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, as it's officially known, is currently being developed by Dragami Games, Kadokawa Games' successor. It should be known that it's being made without the involvement of James Gunn, Suda51, or even Tara Strong, Juliet's original voice actress. And yet Dragami is going for a, quote, remake as close as possible to a remaster. So why not just fucking remaster it? If you're just gonna make the exact same game, get Night Dive Studios or somebody else to just port the game to modern consoles. We don't need a full remake that is essentially going to be the same game. This isn't like Resident Evil 4, which is a slightly different game with the same name. This isn't even like Battle for Bikini Bottom, where lots of small things were updated and added. The biggest difference being that Lollipop Chainsaw is barely 11 years old. Save for better aiming and some minor quality of life changes, I see no reason for this to fucking exist. Will it replace the original? Probably not. Lollipop Chainsaw is one of those games that can't really be recreated, with all the creatives being at a very specific point in their career, as well as the gaming medium as a whole being caught up with the graphics race, and having their games look like someone smeared shit on the screen solely for the sake of realism. Lollipop Chainsaw came out swinging as a breath of fresh air. And hey, even if it ends up being half as fun or creative as this one is, then the remake will have done its job. That's all I got. Make sure to share this on Tumblr Live.
Here's to the ones that we got.
I'm gonna you up.
Show no mercy.
Ooh, that's gotta hurt.
Lollipop Chainsaw. Rated M for mature.
Everybody cut fart loose! Fart loose! Let out your asshole juice!